our story. We're on chapter 4 of The Sorceress, The Secrets of the Immortal, Nicholas Flamel. The early morning sky over Alcatraz was the color of dirty metal. Flecks of ice-cold rain hissed across the island, and the churning sea pounded against the rocks, sent bitter, salty foam high into the air. Penelope Flamel ducked back into the shelter of the ruin of the warden's house. She rubbed her hands up and down, her bare arms bruising away droplets of salt moisture. She was wearing a light sleeveless summer dress, now soiled with mud and rust, but the tall, elegant woman wasn't cold. Although she'd been reluctant to use her waning powers, she had adjusted her aura, bringing her body temperature up to a comfortable level. She knew if she got too cold, she wouldn't be able to think clearly, and she had a feeling she was going to need all her resources in the hours to come. 4 days ago, Penelope Flamel had been kidnapped by John Dee and imprisoned on Alcatraz. Her guard, a sphinx, had been chosen for its special ability to feed off of others' auras, the energy fields that surround every living thing. The English magician had hoped the Sphinx would drain Penelope's aura and prevent her from escaping, but as Dee had done so often in the past, he had underestimated Penelope's abilities and powers. With the help of the island's guardian ghost, the sorceress had been able to escape the Sphinx. It was only then that she discovered the island's terrible secret. Dee had been collecting monsters. The prison cells were filled with horrific creatures from all over the earth. Creatures most humans believed existed only in the darkest corners of myth and legend. But the most surprising discovery had lain in the hidden tunnels deep beneath the island. There, trapped behind magical symbols older than even the elders, she had found the creature known as Irop Inab, the old spider. The two had formed an uneasy alliance and defeated the Morrigan, the crow goddess, and her army of birds. But they knew that worse was to come. "This weather is not natural," Penelope said softly, the merest trace of her French accent audible in her voice. She breathed deeply and grimaced. To her heightened sense of smell, the wind coming in off San Francisco Bay was tainted with the odor of something foul and long dead, a sure sign that it was abnormal. Rope Inap was perched high on a wall of the empty building. The enormous bloated spider was busy sheathing the shell of the house with a sticky white web. Millions of spiders, some as big as plates, others little more than specks of dirt, scuttled across the massive web in an undulating dark shadow, adding their own layers of silk to the dripping web. Without turning his head, the elder swiveled 2 of its 8 eyes to focus on the woman. It raised one of its thick legs straight up in the air, gray-tipped purple hair waving in the breeze. Something's coming, but not elder, and not Humani either. It lisped. "Something's already here," Penelope said grimly. Aropanap turned to look down at Penelope. 8 tiny eyes were perched on the top of its eerily human-like head. It had no nose or ears, and its mouth was a horizontal slash, filled with long poisonous fangs. The savage teeth gave it a curious lisping speech. "What happened?" it asked suddenly, dropping to the ground on a gossamer thread. Penelope picked her way across the stone floor, trying to avoid the knotted strands of spiderweb that stuck to everything they touched. They had the consistency of chewing gum. I was down at the water's edge, she said quietly. I wanted to see how far we were from land. Why? Arap asked, stepping closer to the woman, towering over her. I learned a spell many years ago from an Inuit shaman. It changes the consistency of running water, turning it to something like thick sticky mud. Effectively, it allows you to walk on water. Inuits use it when they're hunting polar bears out on ice floats. I wanted to see if it worked on warm saltwater. And? Inap asked. I didn't get a chance to try it. Benelli shook her head, gathering her long mane of black hair in her hands. She pulled it over her shoulder. Usually she wore it in a tight, thick braid, but it hung loose now, and it was shot through with more silver and gray than even the day before. Look, Arap stepped closer. Each of its legs was thicker than the woman's torso and tipped with a hooked spike, but it moved without making a sound. Brunelli held out a hank of hair. A 4-inch long chunk had been neatly cut from it. I was leaning over the water, gathering my aura to try the spell, when something came up out of the water with barely a ripple. Its jaws sliced through my hair. Old Spire hissed softly. Did you see it? A glimpse, nothing more. I was too busy scrambling back up the beach. A serpent? Brunelli reverted to the French of her youth. No, a woman, green-skinned with teeth. Lots of teeth. I caught the flash of a fishtail as it dipped back into the water. Brunelli shook her head and dropped her hair, settling it back over her shoulder, then looked up at the elder. Was it a mermaid? I've never seen one of the sea folk. Unlikely, Rupa Nap muttered, though it might have been one of the wilder Nereids. The sea nymphs? But they are far from home. Yes, they do prefer the warm waters of the Mediterranean, but the oceans of the world are their home. I've encountered them everywhere, even amongst the icebergs of the Antarctic. There are 50 Nereids, and they always travel together, which suggests to me that this island is most likely completely surrounded. Will not escape by sea. But that is not the greatest of our concerns. A rope in that list. If the Nereids are here, then that probably means that their father, Neros, is close as well. Despite her warmth, a shiver ran up in Penelli's spine. The old man of the sea? But he lives in some distant, watery shadow realm, and only rarely ventures into this realm. He hasn't come to our world since 1912. What would possibly bring him back? Rupanat bared its teeth in a savage grin. Why you, Madame Penelli? You are the prize. They want your knowledge and your memories. You and your husband are amongst the rarest of humans. You are immortals without elder masters controlling you. And now that you are trapped on Alcatraz, the Dark Elders will do their utmost to ensure that you not leave here alive. Blue and white static crackled down the length of Pernelli's hair, which slowly rose and extended out behind her in a shimmering black halo. Her eyes blazed cold and green, and an ice-white aura bloomed around her, filling the interior of the ruined house with stark light. A dark wave of spiders scuttled into the shadows. Do you know how many Dark Elders and their kith and kin have attempted to kill me? Pernelli demanded. Aurora shrugged, an ugly movement of all its legs. Many, it suggested. And do you know how many are still alive? Few, Aurora suggested. Pernelli smiled. Very few. Alright guys, that's the end of chapter 4. It's a shorter one today, but we'll try to add another one later. You guys have a great morning or evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.